stateside now, where an anti-ICE Army veteran who set fire to a federal building in downtown Manhattan has now been charged. 43-year-old Andrew Arrabaca, who allegedly also had weapons and explosive devices in his possession, was charged with destruction of property owned or leased by the United States by means of fire or explosives, and causing personal injury or substantial risk of injury. These charges do carry a mandatory minimum sentence of 7 years in prison and a maximum sentence of 40 years in prison. So to discuss this very disturbing case, let's now bring in attorney and research fellow at the Thomas A. Rowe Institute for Economic Policy Studies, Alan Mendenhall, as well as former federal prosecutor Doug Burns. Gentlemen, wow. Okay, Doug, I'm going to start with you here. So this Army veteran named Andrew Arrabaca, who we are showing you right here on your screen, poured a flammable liquid. We saw it in all the video. It's everywhere. And then set it on fire to protest allegedly these ongoing ICE operations. There it is right there. Him pouring on camera that flammable liquid. He also allegedly had a slew of weapons and incendiary devices. He's just been charged with 2 serious crimes I mentioned previously. Doug, my question to you is, though, why isn't terrorism one of these charges? Do you think that'll come later? Or if this isn't terrorism, what is it?
Well, the answer lies in the difference between proceeding on a complaint versus an indictment. OK, this is a complaint charging him with arson, as you said, Section 844 of Title 18. And it's, mandatory 5-year minimum, generally 7 years if you create a substantial risk to others, 20 years if death results. So that's a preliminary charge in the complaint. He's entitled, it's interesting by reference to the Tyler Robinson, he's entitled technically to a preliminary hearing, but if they obtain a grand jury indictment, there will be no entitlement to any preliminary hearing. And to answer your question, finally, they will definitely be considering adding a lot of additional charges by the time they present it to the grand jury, Alex.
I mean, my goodness, it's all on camera. And he allegedly also said that he didn't care if he injured not only federal officials, but also just civilians who happened to be in the area as well. And of course, Alan, like we've talked about, this, did take place outside a federal building in New York. Are there only going to be federal charges, or do you see New York City also looking to prosecute him?
Well, you're correct that both could prosecute him. I want to address what your question was about the domestic terrorism, because there really is no standalone federal crime called domestic terrorism. Federal statute defines domestic terrorism, but it doesn't create a criminal offense for that. So prosecutors have to charge specific underlying crimes like the arson, for example, here, like the damage to federal property, and then go to terrorism as an enhancement. So that would apply if the crime was intended to intimidate or coerce the government, which I think you have a very strong case for here. This case reminds me, not in terms of the facts, but it reminds me of the Dylan Roof Charleston church shooting back in 2015. Again, the facts aren't similar at all, but I just recall commentary then saying, why wasn't this guy charged for domestic terrorism? And I guess the issue is because there wasn't really a standalone domestic terrorism offense applicable to the conduct. And the same holds here, where the terrorism is used as an enhancement, but it's not used as a charge in the underlying offense.
Interesting. Okay, I really appreciate you kind of breaking that down for all of us there, Alan. But gentlemen, while I have you, we do have to pivot to this. So former Venezuelan dictator turned federal prisoner, Nicolas Maduro, and his wife, they're actually due back in a Manhattan court Wednesday today for a conference ahead of their drug trafficking trial. Doug, we haven't really talked about this in a while. What happens next in this case? I mean, is this going to trial anytime soon, or will this drag on for years? I know they're potentially maybe eyeing a June of 27 trial, but what do you think happens?
Well, there's a few issues that'll be addressed. Obviously, scheduling, of course, they'll set down time for the defense to make motions. And potential hearings with respect to those motions. The defense has also been carping about the fact that he was kidnapped, but it's not going to really get him all that far under a case called U.S. versus Alvarez-Machine, where the Supreme Court held that even if somebody is kidnapped, it doesn't technically defeat jurisdiction before the U.S. courts. And then lastly, there was an issue that came up about funding his defense. That, to me, was a little bit of a red herring. The defense was claiming that they wanted the Venezuelan government to fund his defense. But the reality is that the individual defendant has tremendous financial resources. So they'll address things like that. I mean, I tried a case before Judge Hellerstein, full disclosure, very good judge, and he'll umpire it well, in my opinion.
Okay. All right. Alan, I do want to ask you this, so kind of follow up. In your opinion, is Maduro actually going to go to trial, or do you expect him to make any kind of plea deal here?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, his defense attorney is the same attorney for Julian Assange. He's actually done a lot to make this trial proceed very slowly. Judge Hellerstein is a good judge, as was just mentioned. He's 92 years old, by the way. He was born in 1933. He was born at the height of the Great Depression. A few days after the repeal of Prohibition was ratified, he graduated from college when Elvis Presley was recording his first song. So he has been around a while. He's an institution unto himself. But I suspect this will go to trial, but I don't think it will go to trial for at least a year. I mean, we're talking, it could be even 2 years before we get there.
My goodness gracious. Alan Mendenhall, Doug Birds. I really appreciated you guys coming on this morning. Really, really good insight from both of you gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.